Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show, where you'll find health and fitness inspiration, motivation, and information shared in 15-minute episodes. Tune in while getting a move on to make leading and enjoying the benefits of a healthy lifestyle almost too easy. It's the Fit 15. And now your host, Catherine Basu.
Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I am your host, Catherine Basu, and today I have the honor of chatting with Jay Papasan, who is the co-author of one of my personal favorite books that I hope you will check out after listening to our conversation today, or revisit if it's been a while since you've worked on the strategies that are found within the book's pages. For those of you who are new to my guest, Jay Papasan is a best-selling author who serves as vice president and executive editor at Keller Williams Realty International, the fastest-growing real estate company in North America. Jay has co-authored a series of books that have found their way to numerous best-selling lists, including those found on the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and the New York Times. His most recent work with Gary Keller on The One Thing has sold over 500,000 copies worldwide and garnered more than 250 appearances on national bestseller lists, including #1 on the Wall Street Journal's hardcover business list. Jay, welcome to the Fit 15. I'm so excited to have you as my guest today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I would say, I don't know if you would say this or not, but I would say maybe your big claim to fame, or how people might recognize your name, is that you're the author of this book called The One Thing. So could you talk to us more about what the book's kind of, give us a summary of what we should take away from the book in general?
I think that's an accurate depiction. I'm actually the co-author. Gary Keller's the main author.
Sure.
And it seems to be kind of the theme of my life. I followed my older sister, who was super popular. So I was Jan's little brother. I was my father's son. And I'd like to think now that I'm Gary Keller's co-author, but a lot of people say that I'm Wendy Papasan's husband too. So she's, you know what? And if that's my role, I'm good with it. So yeah, The One Thing's been out for about 5 years. It's a book we intended to be a business book, but it's been really strange, and it's totally intuitive that you're reaching out from your space. Mm-hmm. So many of the people who have reached out to us to tell us their success stories, the first place they're applying the book is in the health area. And I remember turning to Gary Keller, my co-author, and our publisher, a guy named Ray Bard, at one point, and I was like, dude, we wanted to write a business book and we wrote a diet book. How did that happen? You know, we're just laughing. But it is a place where that feedback loop happens pretty quickly. And when people follow that approach, they tend to get results pretty quickly in the health area. And that's why, it just kind of perpetuates.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. So what are some of the key things that we could take away from the book to apply to our health and fitness goals in order to get closer to them?
Well, it's like I said, it's an approach. And so health is one of the main areas we definitely want people to apply it. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, the big idea, and it's right there on the cover, so it's super simple, is identify your #1 priority. What's your one thing? And in this context, what would the one thing I can do for my health be? And we're looking for the activity that has the greatest impact. We call it, Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. What's the biggest lever we have currently in our arsenal? So the way we would ask it, what's the one thing I can do for my health, such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? Mm-hmm. And in my experience, Catherine, a lot of people have a pretty good idea what that answer is. It's like, well, I should quit smoking, or I should get off the couch and start moving around on the weekends. And we know the answer. We're just not asking the question. And we carry a lot of guilt around for that. So the first step is to ask the question, today, where I am today, what's the one thing, right, that I can do for my health? And then fundamentally, we want people to put it on their calendars. We call it time blocking. Mm-hmm. Make an appointment with yourself to do your most important work. And without getting too wonky on you, there's some great research that shows if you just do that task of navigating your time, you're about 3 times more likely to do it. There was a study trying to get people to exercise 20 minutes a day. People who had motivation, they had a little primer on why 20 minutes of exercise was good for them. Mm-hmm. They were about 35% likely to do it. The control group who had just told to do it was about 38%, so functionally the same. But people who had, quote, intention, they had to declare on these days, at these times, at this place, I'll exercise for 20 minutes, were over 90% likely to do it. And that intention to me is a lot like making an appointment. They had to navigate their time and figure out when they were actually going to do this thing. So that's the second step. Figure out what you're going to do. Put it on your calendar, which is really increases the odds you'll do it. And then we want people to make it a habit, So, what if the one thing you could do for your health was flossing your teeth? Well, our research suggests, that 66 days of doing something is the average amount of time it takes to go from this is really hard to do and I have to think about it to now I don't have to think about it. It's a habit. So that would be the ultimate kind of elevator pitch for the big ideas is figure out your one thing, put it on your calendar. And if it's really important, just make it a habit. And when that habit's formed, you can go on to the next thing and the next thing. And that's how people become, you, Catherine, like super fitness. It's like, that's how it works is over time, the accumulation of those habits, people go, wow, you're really succeeding in this area. And it's really lots of small steps added up over time.
I love that. That's definitely what I try to have my clients do. I mean, actually one thing to use, I'm going to use that phrase a lot now, but one thing that I have them do each week, especially in the small group program that I run that's been really effective is to think about what is the one thing that even though we have this small group and everyone has different goals, specific to their person, everyone's trying to get healthier. And so each week focusing on what is the one thing that will have the biggest impact for them that week. And because they have that ownership of their choosing it is actually something that's been really helpful for people. So I'm glad that the research is backing that up. That's good.
Well, your instincts are dead on. And I like that. I remember we have a coaching company on the real estate side of our business and on the business side. And a lot of our philosophy is around asking better questions. And I just remember Gary's like, why do we have such a focus on asking questions? And he goes, if you just tell someone the answer, they may or may not buy in.
Hey friends, it's Catherine. If your one thing that you are focusing on for your health today is to go for an out and back 15-minute walk, that was your halfway point reminder. You want to turn around now. All right, back to Jay.
But when people come up with their own answer, you at least know that they'll own the answer itself.
Right.
Like half the battle. So allowing people to supply their own answer is kind of like when my daughter was, kindergarten, those first years of school, she was very picky about what she would wear. And it was one of those things that it was my job and it was my joy. Let's put it that way. That was some of my dad time with my daughter. But it was also a struggle with my patience. And I remember Wendy, mom, showing up and just kind of coaching me real quick. Just don't let her just choose from everything. If you narrow the choices. And so the ritual became in the evening, I would lay out 3 potential outfits for the next day and say, which one would you like? And if I chose for her, we got nowhere. If I gave her all the choices in the world, we got nowhere. But by providing a small spread, it was like all the pain went out of the process by letting her choose. But because she was a kindergartner, we kind of narrowed the choice. So.
But that's something that I've seen and heard about in the research too, is that, it's funny you're talking about that example with your daughter getting ready in the morning with her outfit, but if you're taking it back to the workout space, if you're able to put your one workout outfit, maybe you don't have the decision that you're going to make as an adult, have that ready for you can have a huge impact in actually executing that and not having too many decisions that you're making throughout the day to overwhelm you.
Oh, totally. And I'm going, James Clear, I don't know if you know him. He's got a blog, jamesclear.com. He writes a lot about habits too. And I'm going to totally butcher the language, but there's a lot of great research. I mean, the first time I heard it was, if you want to go running in the morning, line up your running shoes so that when you step out of bed, you step into them. Basically take all the friction out of the behavior. And that is a great way to do it. When he was trying to learn to floss his teeth, he made sure that he had floss right by his toothbrush. He would have to trip over that to do the other thing. And so much of how we build these habits, especially new behavior, is tough, and if you're trying to go to the gym, as much as you can prepare yourself so that you can take all of the thinking and the plan Bs, like have that all prepared, makes you so much more likely to do it. I'll tell you, for 8 years, my wife and I have worked out with a trainer 3 times a week. And we started with like one of those, like a camp. It was called Camp Gladiator here in town.
Mm-hmm.
Where we would go and work out with a bunch of people. And as soon as we were able to afford it, we had the gym come to us, which is kind of like what you do with your clients.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But for us, it was the accountability. Like,
Yep.
I knew, given as busy as our lives were, if I had to get up, coordinate with my wife, and get in a car and figure out how we're going to have someone watch the kids and get to the gym, that was too many ifs.
Sure.
And having that person show up, like you, like my phone's going to ring at 5 in the morning. It's Catherine calling, right? Or, my trainer was like, if I get out of bed at 4:30 to come to your house by 5 a.m., I'm knocking on the window if you're not waiting for me. Right?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
But it just like, if you think about it a little bit, it goes back to that study. If you can just navigate your time and kind of line up some of those dominoes beforehand, you're just so much more likely to follow through.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And I guess too, one thing you were saying, that the book has brought a lot of people that have been able to have success in their health and fitness goals, but that wasn't the main purpose. But one thing I love about health and fitness is that if you're able to add that to your life, you're able to bring it to other areas of your life. And I think that's even how you try to get people to see that one thing. Like, so they might be focusing on the fitness goals, but it's not just in a bubble. It relates to other goals in their life. Could you talk a little bit about that and how we can connect our life to our one thing fitness goal?
I love that. The subtitle for the book is The Surprisingly Simple Truth Behind Extraordinary Results. And so what we studied were like the top 1%, the top performers in multiple areas, and the best businesses in multiple fields. So it wasn't just, real estate sales or something. It was almost a 5-year journey for us.
Mm-hmm.
And you started to see a pattern. Some of it came from Gary's hypothesis. Some of it came from the field. But if you want to be really successful in business, there's a foundation you have to lay before there. And so on page 114 of our book, it's the only page of the book, frankly, that I have memorized. There are the 7 areas of your life we feel that you would use the one thing approach. And the first one's your spiritual life. That's just our opinion. If you're a spiritual person, we feel like that's kind of the foundation. But the second area is your personal health, because big success requires big energy. And a lot of people neglect that because they've got great mental energy, or they're really focused on their business, and they neglect that. And it's one of those deficits that accumulates over time, and it's kind of geometric, right? It's kind of like if you had finances where I'm just going to spend a little bit more than I earn. I'm just going to spend a little bit more than I earn. And nothing really happens, right? You just have a little bit bigger monthly payment on your Visa card, and then you decide to get another credit card.
Right.
But then something happens, like you lose your job, or you get an unexpected medical bill. And that's actually where people go from, I'm staying afloat, to I'm so underwater, I don't know how to get out. And the same thing can happen to your health, right? I'm just going to have a cheeseburger with bacon, right? I'm just going to have another beer. And in the short run, it doesn't feel like enough negative to account for anything. But in the long run, you're actually creating kind of momentum towards what can be a devastating effect, right?
Sure.
I don't want to say it's a heart attack.
Sure.
But that's when you show up to the doctor and they're like, we got to talk about statins because your blood pressure is out of control. Right?
Sure.
So I think it's foundational. And we made it a big part of the book. So we addressed it. Of the 7 areas of your life, it's the second most important because it's so foundational. Everything else you want to do relies on your health. And we have a whole section in the book, called The Thieves of Productivity. And one of the ones we call out of there is poor health habits. And if people aren't kind of launching their days with some purpose, and for us, that's maybe meditating and journaling. It's getting really clear on your goals, but it's also, nutrition and exercise so that you can start your day with all the energy you need to get through all the things you're going to do to have that extraordinary life. It's very foundational, and it's just easy to skip over or neglect. I don't know about you. I see a lot of, quote, successful people who are clearly neglecting their health. And I look at them, and some of them are amazing people, right?
Yep.
You're like, how much are you short-circuiting the legacy that you could leave because you've neglected this thing? And it's taking literally years from their life. They just don't know it.
Right, right. No, I see that a lot. But, one thing I noticed when I was starting my business, I was trying to figure out what are some of the secrets of successful entrepreneurs just to cut down the learning curve. And I did see, though, luckily, there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are successful, like Richard Branson is a big example, that do take time for fitness and mention that it helps them be more productive. So I think it's just kind of that education of going from it's just something else on my to-do list to how if you actually experience it, it can make you a lot more productive. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on it either, which is good.
Well, going back to when you asked me how to describe the book, if you build some healthy lifestyle habits around your health, it doesn't take any effort at all.
Right.
They're just what you do. It's kind of like, I've got a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. I can tell you, it takes as long as a decade or more to build the habit of brushing your teeth on your own. Because that was a battle up until very recently. And that's why we live past 40 today, is our dental health, right? I mean, you go back to the Middle Ages, people died.
That's true.
Don't worry about that anymore. So you invest in building these habits, and then it doesn't take any energy for me to think about brushing my teeth anymore. Zero. And if you build the habit of drinking a lot of water, that becomes unconscious. If you build the habit of waking up at a certain time, it's a wonderful thing, because if you wake up the same time every day, guess what? You might stay up late one night, but in general, you're going to go to bed on time. Like, healthy sleep habits is actually the foundation, I think, for everything. And then nutrition, and then exercise. If there were 3 dominoes people could focus on that would have the biggest impact, it would be sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I mean, you're the expert, but I've interviewed a lot of folks, and that's what I walked away with.
No, I definitely find that true. And as someone, for me, fitness is like my habit, right? But as I've been able to add in nutrition, I've seen that help tremendously, especially with bigger goals I have, like, running a marathon. You can go so far with just kind of try and eat as healthy as you can, but just be more strategic can help. And then sleep. I mean, like you said, if you don't have sleep, it really can derail what you're working on for anything. You're not focused. You're not, you're not able to be able to have your body ready for a workout. So definitely agree with that.
It messes up your diet. It was weird. We did some studies that if you are, and most Americans are chronically sleep deprived, right? We spend too much time looking at screens. So when we do sleep, we don't have enough melatonin, and there's this long chain reaction. You don't have to be an expert. But one of the things that if you're sleep deprived, the enzymes I don't even know, the enzymes in your body that say I'm full get muted. And the ones that say I have the munchies, the volume gets turned up.
Yes.
So totally when we're sleep deprived, we tend to snack more than we should, and we tend to overeat. And so a lot of people think they have a diet problem. They really have a sleep problem. And it starts a domino series, that goes from there on. That's kind of crazy. And the biggest realization I had in working with my trainer is that I could not, as a professional, I can't work out for 4 hours a day.
Right.
I'm not a professional. I know that professional, you read about what Michael Phelps would eat while training for the Olympics, 14 pancakes.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I don't have the liberty. There's no amount of work I can do in the hour or so I can give to my physical exercise a day that will undo one double cheeseburger and a beer, right?
Right.
So I have to manage my life where that is something that I can indulge in when it's appropriate, but it's not something I can do every day, because exercise just doesn't compensate for that. So anyway, that's the way I look at it. It's sleep first, it's a reasonable diet in between, and then hopefully reasonable amounts of exercise can lead to a very healthy foundation for whatever else you want to do.
Yeah, no, I love that you mentioned the sleep part, because I feel like this time of year, people are looking for the quick fix, like some detox smoothie or, juicing and all that. But really, I think if they look to sleep, that would be a huge impact that, I've had clients who weren't getting, the recommended 8 hours or so anywhere close to that, and just adding an extra hour to the minimal amount of sleep was able to turn around the results they were getting. So can't say enough about sleep. I do recommend working on that for sure. So, well, Jay, I've loved chatting with you. I know I'm trying to make the interview short, but what any like last minute tips, big takeaways? I think, everyone should definitely read the book is something I recommend. I know I've had people read and say, well, that's pretty obvious, but actually implementing and going back and trying to use the strategies, it might be obvious, but not many people actually follow through. So any insights or just tips to kind of close out on that?
Sure. I mean, there's nothing, I think there's only a couple of things that I thought were really novel when we came out with the book. Like, I don't think most people understood how long it took to form habits. But almost everything else in there is stuff that you might have heard elsewhere. But I do think that Gary and I are both really practical people. We want people to be able to do things, not just understand them. And so I think the success of the book, which is now 30 translations and 1.4 million copies, it's blown our minds, right? It was far beyond our expectations, is that it created a framework that people can actually follow. And you mentioned it. It's a simple framework, and that's by intent. People can't do complicated things for very long.
Right.
It just our brain, we're too full up all the time. We have sick parents and we have sick kids and we have mean bosses and we have too much work and we have vacations we want to take. It just complicated doesn't work. And so it is a simple approach. It's just not easy.
Right.
And so it does take practice, and you have to form some habits around how you approach, the things that really matter to you. And what's great is once you figure out that approach, like for me, the ultimate hack in my life was when I figured out if I can identify something that's really important to me and build a habit around doing that thing. It's an amazing thing that over time, maybe I formed you can do 5 habits a year on average, but maybe I actually add 1 or 2 every year. Over a period of 5 or 10 years, that actually adds up to a lot. And over a lifetime, it actually adds up to extraordinary, and it allows me to do a lot of things that I wasn't able to do before. So I would just say that's where I would focus, is how do I acquire better habits instead of diets and detoxes, which I think of as short-term. They're intended to be short-term.
Right.
And then it's a great jumpstart maybe, but it's not behavior change. It's not a habit. It's not a lifestyle. And that's where the really big things settle in and impact your life. So you're preaching the truth as far as I'm concerned, Catherine. Keep it up.
Well,
and if people, I guess, want to know more about what we're doing, they can go to theonething.com.
Perfect.
Pretty easy to find. And we've got all kinds of resources there for people.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys keep adding more and more things. So more and more things, but focused on the one thing. So it's really exciting to see that grow.
It's funny. You cracked up. Like, it's like but you're doing more than one thing. Like, of course we are. It's you can only do one thing at a time, though. So yeah, we have multiple resources for people. If they want to form a habit, we've got a 66-day calendar. That's kind of fun. Whatever they need, if they're trying to follow the book, we've tried to provide them with some tools, because that's what we want. We want people to live the book. And like you've shared, it can make an impact if you can do it.
And I just have to say, I try to keep the book where I can see it, because I always have, as an entrepreneur, like all these things I want to work on and do next. And I just having that, it's almost like a sign, like try to focus on just one. Don't go all over the place.
I'm telling you, it's easy to do. That little instinct, you're like, squirrel, you're off and running. And, we all, Gary and I suffer from that too, but it keeps us honest, right? And my kids will even point out if I'm multitasking now. They're like, Dad, you're multitasking. No, I'm not working. I'm watching a soccer game. Give me a break. But it is a lifestyle that works, especially when you're doing your most important work. So thanks so much for chatting with me, Catherine. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fit 15. For show notes and more, visit fitarmadillo.com/podcast. See you next time.